It was supposed to be a weekend of celebration for the Blue Jays with the unveiling of the Joe Carter statue with the 92 and 93 players on the field being recognized, and you couldn't you couldn't have a worse ending as Duane Ward, it was announced, who didn't show up when the players all were there to get recognized. As it turns out, he passes away. And Keegan, your thoughts on how it all transpired and how out of the blue it was, really.
Yeah, I woke up to the email. It went out about 9 a.m. Sunday. It sounds like some of the Blue Jays and his alumni friends found out the night before, so after the ceremony. But even during the ceremony, guys, there were some people asking like, "Where's Dwayne Ward?" He's a guy that you can't miss. Like he's a very big, fun personality, great guy. I've talked to him many times over the years for stories, and he's the guy who I'll ask for 10 minutes and then like 48 minutes later he's saying like, call me later today if you missed anything. Such an incredible personality, and man, what a pitcher, dude. Like Ward and Henke are forever the model in Toronto, but my favorite thing about them has always been that I really believe you could drop Duane Ward into 2026, that style of pitcher, and it would work. Man, like it was so ahead of its time. Even before he moved into Henke's role for 93 for the title defense, he had 10 plus saves each year. Like he was still saving games, but 100 plus innings each year out of the bullpen. They don't let you do that anymore, right? So he will forever probably hold that saves record, 45 in Toronto. It's been 33 years now. I don't think anyone's going to touch it soon. So a tough day, man. Like such a beloved teammate for all of those guys, and just a really sour end and to what was a very celebratory weekend otherwise, at least in terms of the alumni, not the 26 Blue Jays, but the old guys.
Just sticking with Dwayne for a second, Dan mentioned it off air, but Dan and I are roughly the same age, and Dwayne Ward was such an integral part of setting the seed of
Yeah.
lifelong Blue Jays fandom. For so many people across so many different age categories, you're a Blue Jays historian. Where does he like sit all time in importance to this franchise? Because it's quite high, I imagine.
I remember talking to Jerry Howarth, the radio broadcaster for my book, and he has always said that Henke and Ward were the two most important pitchers for the Jays. We're not talking best, Dave Steve
Mhm.
and Roy Halladay, but that was always one of those things for those great Blue Jays teams of the mid 80s when Bobby Cox was managing, when they had those young position player cores. Yeah, they had Dave Steve, they had Jimmy Key come up and those great starters, but they didn't have that legitimate back end. And how the Blue Jays, found Dwayne Ward, I think they traded Doyle Alexander for him in 86. Took him a couple years to break in. Then they found Tom Henke. And like that back end was unbelievable, man. Like those are the two greatest relievers in Jays history. And guys, even this year when we talk about Louis Varland and what he's doing, you're comparing it to Dwayne Ward, to Tom Henke. Mark Eichhorn had that wild season in the 80s that feels weird to count as a reliever season, but it is. But otherwise, you're comparing it to Duane Ward and Tom Henke. And those were two of the pieces, along with the Carter trade and some of the great maneuvering between 92 and 93 by Pat Gillick. Getting the back end settled down was so important. And Cito Gaston said it again on Saturday. I think his quote was, "We only played 7-inning games," because he could just say, all right, Ward, Henke. If Henke had pitched 9 days in a row or whatever they considered too much back then, you just go to Duane Ward and have him throw 2 innings. They were such a cool, not clash, but contrast of personalities too. It was Duane Ward always felt a little more wild and untamed, and then you had Henke, who was the serious guy with the glasses on. And that duo, to have a bullpen duo like that together for several seasons, together at their best, like it just doesn't really happen anymore. Because in modern baseball, everyone's throwing 102 and blowing their elbows out or getting traded or something. You just don't have in the modern game these dynamic duos at the back of a bullpen. And it's going to be, guys, if I'm covering this team 30 years from now, there's some closer who hasn't been born yet who I'm probably going to be comparing to Duane Ward and Tom Henke.
Up until the news of Duane Ward's passing, I was all ready to talk for about 15 minutes on Pat Borders. There was a Pat Borders sighting, and I think Pat Borders will go down as the coolest Blue Jay of all time, a guy who didn't try to be cool, and man, he looks like $1 million.
He does, man. He's still cool as hell. We did an interview with him, and he still kind of got that laid back, like, can't believe it worked out for me. He was telling stories about how he was in the minor leagues, and it came to decision time of like, do you get a job or do you keep playing baseball? And that's back when minor leaguers were making like $0 instead of the $10 they make today. And he said, screw it. Like, let's just go out and have fun. Let's kick off having a job one more year. And turns into a World Series MVP, man. Like, a lot of those guys have aged well, dude. I need some tips. Like him, Johnny Olerud, Juan Guzman, like these guys, like Joe Carter, these guys could still
Todd Stottlemyre.
Todd Stottlemyre's in there too, man. Like it's funny because a lot of these guys are getting into their early 60s, and it's late 50s, early 60s. You kind of see different types of aging. Some of these guys look quite older, and then some of them, I think, man, like that's still an athlete right there. And then Joe Carter's in the middle of it all. Like that guy hasn't stopped smiling or talking in 30 years. Like what of those big moments, like they can crush you if it happens to the wrong guy. Like if I did one thing in my career, and I know it's a hard comparison, but if any of us did one thing that we get asked about every single day, 400 times, you'd lose your mind. But Joe Carter loves this stuff, man. Like this is the 100th time I've interviewed Joe Carter about it, and he's just as excited every time. Perfect ambassador.
By the way, in Rance Mullenix's defense, as far as aging goes, he always looked like he was 60.
Oh, Rance. He's a classic.
He hasn't aged a day in 30 years, unfortunately, as Dan said. So it's so much fun to reminisce about those teams. It's fun to think back in last teams, but this year's team could not be further away from those World Series appearing teams or winning teams, falling to a season worst 7 games below 500 this weekend.
It's ugly, man. It's boring style of baseball right now. It just is. There are ways to lose that are a bit more fun than this. Maybe you're a young team on the come up, Maybe you're a team that hits for power and just can't pitch, but your games are at least 10-9, right? This is pretty dull right now. And John Schneider said it yesterday. You see a lot of these guys up at bat, and they're kind of defensive at the plate. They're just trying to put the ball in play. That's what happened in 2024. And that's why 2024 sucked. You need to be the aggressor as a hitter, which is hard to do because the pitcher gets the first move every single time. But it's just not happening. I think tonight is game 100, and Vladdy hasn't homered at Rogers Center yet. What are we doing here? This is still so shocking to me, even though I watch it every single day. Because I know that the talent is in there, and that's what's so frustrating about this. You even look at the offseason, guys, and I keep coming back to this baffling point. If you told me in the offseason that Dylan Cease would be a Cy Young candidate, Kaz Okamoto would have 22 homers already, be on pace for 30+, Tyler Rogers would be really good, and Spencer Miles would be the best story of their season, I would say, holy, they must be 30 games above 500. Every single other thing on this roster has gone wrong after a year where it all went right. It seems like it's just snowballing on them at this point. They needed to come out of the All-Star break with some energy. I don't score 10 runs, get into a fight. I don't care what you do. Just some energy. And it wasn't there. A 1-0 win, which, I mean, it's great. It means you pitched well. But a 1-0 win on a ground ball that snuck through the middle, and then you get shut out like that. It's not going to happen. And you kind of heard more of that urgency and frustration from John Schneider and the players last night, where it's just like, this has got to happen right now. So, welcome to town, Tampa Bay Rays, for 4 games. Great timing.
Well, if they sweep the Rays, they're right back in it. But let's play devil's advocate. In hockey, if this happens, the entire coaching staff is gassed.
Yeah.
That very rarely happens in baseball. And why doesn't it happen in baseball? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people saying, just clean the decks, bring in new coaches, bring in new voices.
And it's in hockey, I think you get external guys so much more often. In baseball, like I used the Red Sox earlier this year when they fired Alex Cora, which, I mean, I don't even care if they've won 13 straight. Still stupid to fire Alex Cora. But when they did that, they called up their own AAA manager. Like in baseball, I think they really prioritize more having a guy who at least knows who the hell these people are instead of jumping in midseason. And that heat's going to be on, man. The heat is going to be on David Popkins, the hitting coach. Absolutely. I don't think nearly as much on Pete Walker at this point, but the hitting guys, 100%. And there's going to be some of that heat on John Schneider as well. Like I'm not someone who believes that the blame for this falls on Schneider completely. No one's without it. My God, like everyone takes a bit of it. But I also struggle, guys, like for the reasons I laid out with Cease and the offseason signings, I kind of struggle to really just blast the front office too. And that's tough for me because these things are my natural intuition. You know, like I want to be angry at someone, like I need someone to blame. It's a situation this year where I think that the last month has left people really grasping to find like, oh, did David Popkins send everyone an email that screwed all of this up? Or like, did John Schneider give everyone a piece of advice that sent this season sideways? And the truth about this year is that it's just a bunch of players playing really bad at the same time. And that level of coincidence, which doesn't excuse it, but just that overlap coincidence sucks. And unless you're the Dodgers, you can't prepare for that with that many big leaguers. So part of this is, yeah, the manager needs to get more out of the team. Part of it's the hitting coach needs to get more out of it. But I'm blaming the players, this year. And I think, I don't want to speak for them, I don't think they'd like that, but I would presume a lot of the players would agree with me because they have internet access and they can look at statistics and see how this season's going. Varsho, Springer, Vladdy, Barger a non-factor, all of these OPS dips. The coaches need to help them get out of that, but my God, the players need to save this.
Yeah, Keegan, it seems like the most consistent failure point of this team has in fact been the offensive production, but it's almost as if they took they were so known as being tough at bats last year. They find ways to get on base. And it's like they took that identity and decided to make that the identity, but they've removed all the extra base hits from the equation. And you just can't win Major League Baseball games if you're not getting doubles, triples, and home runs.
No, it's so much easier. Look at the White Sox who just came through town.
Yeah.
They are fourth in the league in home runs because they have Montgomery and Vargas and Munetaka Murakami. And yeah, along the way, those guys might strike out a ton, but whatever. Like Kazuma Okamoto is the model for what you need more of. He's going to strike out a bunch, sure. But along the way, he is going to have some at-bats to change games. For a single to change a game, it better be really well timed or something. I don't know.
Or fielded by the Mets.
Yeah, my God. Thank you, George Springer, Juan Soto. But the Blue Jays right now are trying to hit 4 singles in a row. It just does not work. It sure doesn't work against a team like the Rays, and it won't work in the playoffs. You need an element of power. If you're going to play this game, having a lot of contact and moving on the bases, which is kind of like the Rays, you need to be elite pitching, which the Rays are, and elite defense, which the Rays are. I think the Rays are number 1 or number 2 in baseball defensive metrics right now. The Jays don't have that. And if you're not playing airtight baseball across the board, this offensive approach is built to win 2-1 games. They're not going to win those games. You need one big swing, and it erases everything. If Vladdy hits a 3-run homer tonight, I don't care if they make 6 errors. It just doesn't matter anymore. But they're missing the power. They're in the bottom 10 of the league in power metrics across the board. Home runs, slugging percentage, extra base hits, a lot of the advanced metrics when it comes to exit velocity, driving the ball. It's just not happening. And we see it in Vladdy so often where he's shooting balls the other way. It's great. It's a great single. But you need to turn on a ball and make a pitcher look foolish. It's been so long.
The dome's ready to erupt. Vladdy hit one to the wall, and the people, I don't even think they care about the standings right now. They're just there. It's a sold-out building. They just want to cheer. With each passing day, though, Keegs, it's getting more and more apparent that next year's squad is going to look very different because Daulton Varsho is not at all making a case for the team bringing him back.
This has been a real tough free agent year, man, for Daulton Varsho. I'm just bringing up his numbers right now, hitting 239, 689 OPS, 7 homers. So he's on pace to hit 10 or 12 homers. We'll see.
And how many times this season has he been up in a big moment, and every single time the same thing happens?
A lot. Lunging at a strike 3. And his defense the last month has looked more familiar, but big picture in the season, it's not him. That confuses me a bit because he is a brilliant defender, absolutely brilliant, and it hasn't been there. So I look at a guy who's in a free agent year, and on a human side, you feel for a guy. This
Yeah.
is what he's worked for his whole career. And in Major League Baseball, you are very lucky, very fortunate if you get that one shot at free agency. And for someone like Varsho, could be the same for Shane Bieber. If you have a poorly timed year, a lot of realities change for you, unfortunately. And Varsho right now, guys, we were talking in the press box, myself and a couple other reporters. I'm curious if he turns into an interesting like qualifying offer candidate going into the offseason, which would be like 1 year, 18 or 19, just to reestablish. Is he someone who's looking at shorter term deals in free agency? Probably at this point. If he had have hit 20 homers and played great defense, you're looking at him getting that 4 or 5 year deal somewhere. But now, I mean, the Jays, their outfield, when you eliminate George Springer as well, and Sanchez, Pinango, Lucas, Straw, Schneider, like they're good, but you need a star out there. And whether it's this trade deadline or the offseason, there's got to be a big move coming in the outfield because the Jays have not developed a star outfielder in a very long time.
We have seen some good pitching performances lately. In fact, obviously Shane Bieber looked very
Yeah.
good in his last start. Savage looked incredible yesterday, but obviously they didn't have the offensive support to do anything with that performance. But with the performance like we saw from Bieber, is it now possibility that we could see him trade at the deadline if he's showing signs of being that person to come in for another team the way he did for the Jays at the end of last season? Could he be moved?
Yeah, sure could. I mean, what he did last year, I think, was a 3.57 ERA and pitched a lot in the postseason. Now, obviously, that came back to bite him with how he was feeling physically this year. But when I look around the league, the one thing that never goes out of style is a rental starter. Like that's always going to
Yeah.
have a market no matter what. I don't care how many buyers or sellers there are. The Blue Jays, if this continues to go poorly, could have Shane Bieber and Kevin Gausman. Bieber at this point could make, I believe, 2 more starts before that. If both of them are good, his value skyrockets. Everyone can, because you're not trading for him for the next 8 years. As long as his elbow is not swollen and throbbing like a cartoon, you're happy. Like it's okay. You can worry about that later. Same with Kevin Gausman. If he has a couple of good ones, and I expect him to, coming off a longer rest just to get refreshed, that gets really attractive really quickly. Now, the trade market is never as cool as fans expect when their team is selling. You know, I know Blue Jays fans are going to be like, whoa, Kevin Gausman, like we're going to get the next Vlad. No, you're not. It's always going to be underwhelming. Unless you're trading a guy with multiple years of control, you're going to be underwhelmed. But at the Bieber or Gausman level, you can at least get someone legitimate. You're not getting a 17-year-old Dominican Summer League prospect. You're getting a guy from AA who might be a fringe top 10 prospect who you can really think about and start to rebuild. You know, that's what the Jays did really well in 2024. That's where they made that Kikuchi deal that turned into Loperfido, Jake Bloss, who's still coming, and eventually Brandon Valenzuela. Like, you get some real pieces. But the Jays, I think going into next year, guys, are going to be talking about how they need some stars.
Mhm.
You know, they have a lot of good baseball players, and I can hear people saying, yeah, sure they do. But they have a lot of good enough Major League Baseball players. They're going to need some star power, frankly, to raise the ceiling again going forward.
Oh, they're going to be spending a lot of money in the offseason. Speaking of spending money, Anthony Santander. I wonder if he has talked to the Jays PR and said, guys, they had forgot about me, and you always tell them about my newest injury, and then I become the whipping boy because this guy has had every injury under the sun. Just when he's not the topic of conversation, a new injury comes about, and people say, oh, yeah, that guy. Look how much money we signed him for.
That guy. Santander really brings out that side of sports fans who think that they pay the player like
Yes.
directly. Now, your tickets, I understand, but like that, there's a lot of people who think that they personally are paying Anthony Santander $18 million a year. My anger has limits, you know. I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan. That's the world where I'm still a bit of a nut. And if a guy ends up on IR for a full year, it is a wasted contract. My maximum reaction is like, screw that guy. Okay.
Mhm.
But Santander really brings it out of Jays fans, man.
Oh,
Oh my
man.
Lord. And I assure you that he's, not having shoulder surgeries for fun. I mean, it's not going well. The optics have not been great either. But these setbacks, I mean, God, it's the player he was with the Orioles, where he hit 40 plus homers. That was a bit of an outlier, but you can really think of him as a 30 homer bat who provides some power in the middle. It's just gone away. And next year, when you could potentially be looking at labor issues as well, is he coming back healthy for
Oh,
any
yeah.
of this?
MVP
All of
season
this?
next year.
Big comeback player of the year.
In
But
Japan?
he has essentially been zero value. His games last year were not good. You could even, frankly, based on what they were relying on and have gotten, you can call it negative value up to this point. It was a weird market when the Jays signed him. You just kind of needed to get someone, and Santander was there. This has been a mess, man. Like, from a front office that really hasn't had any big swings and misses. Like, they don't have the Chris Davis or Anthony Rendon contract that we talk about every day. But, and I know you can't plan for a guy blowing his shoulder, but this is, I think, Anthony Santander would like it if there were no injury updates about him until next spring. But I mean, that's how this spring started. I remember sitting on that Zoom call. I had just gotten to Florida, and we had a Zoom call with John Schneider just the day before camp opened for a refresh. He's like, all right, well, to start, Anthony Santander is going to get a shoulder surgery. I was like, today? Like, what was going on all winter? But I don't know. This has been a mess.
Some guys are just broken. Like, it doesn't. Surely they've written him out of their long-term plans at this point, and it's just he was never the bat. He was certainly not the outfielder, and they need both of those things in one player. And they need to, as Dan and you both mentioned, spend big on finding that.
Yeah, at this point, you just got to consider anything he does a bonus. This year and
Community
beyond.
service.
If he comes back and does something, cool. But in the outfield, you got to find some stars, man. The Jays, and they've got more coming, like RJ Schreck, Pinango's still a prospect. The Jays will never have a problem having some decent fourth and fifth outfielders. But the last star they developed, like I really think you're going back to kind of Vernon Wells. Like Kevin Pillar had a good run here, but not as a superstar offensive force. Like, you're really going back a long way to find an all-around, all-star level talent who was developed in Toronto. There've been lots of guys traded over. You go back through Teoscar, and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. was signed when he was a bit older. But it's been a lot of trades, a lot of pickups along the way who've been good. But when you're looking for offensive upside, there's just a lot of potential left in this outfield that they're not finding. And I'm not hedging that it's going to be Anthony Santander at this point.
You know what's crazy about this team and the fan base that has developed around this team is if they just had a series sweep, all of this is forgotten.
Oh, yeah.
All of it. That's a small bar. One series sweep, and everyone's like, I knew it. This team is back.
The entire country will jump right back on. I mean, there's nothing else going on right now. World Cup's over.
Yes.
Hockey doesn't start for a long time, and the free agent 2-day frenzy, whatever it is over. Like, nothing else is happening right now. Basketball hasn't started up. NFL training camps don't start for another week or two. Like, it's wide open, and it's still just on a tee for the Blue Jays. Like, their TV numbers I'd be interested to see, but their attendance numbers are still ridiculous. Like, they're still selling out every game. And at this point of the year, these aren't just tickets that people bought in the winter. Like, people are choosing to come to these baseball games, right? And I know they've made it a destination that kind of insulates them from wins and losses. Like, it still gets people in the ballpark, but these next few days, man, the Jays are up against Nick Martinez, who is great, Drew Rasmussen, who is great, then Griffin Jacks. Like, the Rays are really good. I don't know if the Rays are where I'm looking for a sweep, but if they can sweep the Rays in 4 games, World Series. But this series, guys, if they drop, like, if you split it, okay, we're still having a bit of a conversation. If you only win 1 of the 4 games, that drops you to 9 below. I think that's it.
This is me not holding my breath, Keegan. It just is what it is.
Thanks, Geeks.
You got it, guys.